tap these to the duck's chest, so Mad, for example, children can express to their caregivers. Have you ever wondered how an angry duck sounds? This is how it sounds. And when we actually hear back from families that have been using the duck, this is the feature that families talk about most often. They say, this gives a voice to my child.
Carol, this is Aaron, this is Catherine, and we're going to have a conversation about this magical little guy, My Special Aflac Duck. And it's been almost 3 years that we've been working together on this. And it has just been an absolute amazing experience to work with a company like Aflac, because Aflac has amazing values and corporate character, and I want to bring out 3 really, really important points that we're going to talk about today. The first is that it's called focus. So when you're involved in a social issue, you know, there's this tendency, oh my God, there's something in the news today, there's something in the news tomorrow, to go back and forth. The power is in focus. And Aflac is committed to pediatric cancer for over 25 years. And Catherine's going to talk about the why in that. The second part are deep insights, that to find an open position in pediatric cancer, that was the first thing that we had to do. But then through Aaron and his genius, and he's going to talk about Sproutel, that he really went deep, deep inside of children and their needs with caregivers to truly say, how can this little guy truly bring comfort and joy to children going through an average 1,000 days of pediatric cancer treatments. Then the last part is a core attribute for another one for Aflac, and that's collaboration. That the company understands you have to go outside. You have to bring experts in to help with brilliant, magical ideas that help the business, the brand, as well as society. But they also, once the idea we developed, then they went to their colleagues, their employees, their agents, experts in the industry to say, what are great ideas? How do we bring this to life? They also added in specialists in the not-for-profit world. And Catherine's going to talk about who they are. And then lastly, they have a team of storytellers, internally and externally, because one of the things that happens in social purpose, and yes, I started doing this 30 years ago, but I was only 10. Gotta laugh. Is that you need to tell the story. And you need storytellers, whether it's employees or agents and others. So incredible, again, focus, insights, and collaboration. So let's get into it. So Catherine, why pediatric cancer?
24 years ago, our CEO got a visit from a parent whose child was being treated for pediatric cancer at CHOA, Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. But she had to bring her child to Seattle, Washington to receive a life-saving bone marrow transplant when Ainsley was just in grammar school. And she asked for $25,000 because one of the pediatric wings at the hospital had to have the floors replaced. He was so moved and touched, he said, I want to do something more. And he wrote a $3 million check on the spot and asked for naming rights for the hospital because he thought it was dreadful that a child had to travel clear across the country to receive a life-saving treatment. And today, Ainsley, that little girl, is actually a nurse at the Aflac Cancer Center. So over that 24-year partnership, as Carol alluded to, we've donated over $131 million to research and treatment of pediatric cancer. Thank you. You can applaud that.
That's right. Woo! Focus.
Focus, which I don't seem to have this morning, but hang in there with me. I'm going to get there. It's been a brilliant, beautiful partnership that our agents get behind. Actually, our independent sales agents donate over $500,000 every month out of their commission checks to the Aflac Cancer Center. And when you look at the broader picture of how business can step in where there are voids in government, I'll give you a statistic you might find staggering. For all of the money that the US government earmarks for cancer research and treatment in the United States every year, less than 4% goes toward pediatric cancer. So again, a great opportunity for business to step in and make a real difference and have an impact.
Great, great. So now I want to turn to Aaron. And Adam talked about bringing disparate ideas together. And I knew Aaron, I was really fortunate. I judged an IBM online reality show. And it was for social entrepreneurs, and Aaron won. And it was over 250 different social entrepreneurs. And we stayed in touch. And this is really important about when someone says, come have this meal, have this coffee, do it. Because he reached out to me in New York, and we were having this chit chat, and he said, what's up, Carol? And I went, well, we're having conversations with Aflac. And what ultimately came of that was a brilliant, wonderful relationship. And then we got to bring Aaron in. So Aaron, tell us about Sproutel. And what's the genesis of Sproutel? And then we're going to get into the doc.
Hey, so my name is Aaron. I'm the co-founder of Sproutel. And we're a patient-centered research and development workshop. And our focus is on making healthcare a little bit playful. So I got into this line of work because as a child, I had human growth hormone deficiency. So I was actually really, really small. I was about 4'6", 4'8", going into high school. And every day for about 5 years, I gave myself a shot. And something I never talked about, something I never felt comfortable sharing with my friends, and even a lot of my family. And so I became really passionate about how we can help reframe healthcare challenges specifically for children. So our first product was a teddy bear. It is a teddy bear. His name is Jerry the Bear. He's for children with type 1 diabetes. And based off of this really simple insight, we saw kids with diabetes injecting their teddy bears, pricking their teddy bears' fingers, making little insulin pumps on pieces of paper that they'd staple to the fur of their stuffed animal. And we said, hey, can we bring this play to life and can we make it engaging? So part of the way that we work and really core is this process. It's working with families, it's working with doctors, and it's incorporating the experience that they have in their day-to-day lives, such as kids with diabetes, pricking the fingers of their teddy bears, and it's solving the problems that they're having. So when we first sort of learned about what Aflac was doing and were posed this question, might we be able to do something similar for children with cancer? It was such an inspiring spark to kind of kick off that same design process, which ended up, to create the duck, we worked with over 100 families over an 18-month period and over 35 doctors to really not just create, a duck that moves around and does all of these cool things, which I'll show you, but to create something that, as Carol said, really fills this need to bring comfort and joy to children.
So, Catherine, why a duck? I don't know if everybody here knows the Aflac duck, but why a duck?
How many of you are from the US or Japan? Okay. If you raised your hand, how many of you have heard or seen the Aflac duck commercials? Okay. We have 93% brand awareness in the US, and it's even higher in Japan. We insure 1 in every 4 households in Japan. So it made sense for those of you who are marketeers, you'll understand this. Back in the day when we took marketing 101, we learned about the 4 Ps of marketing, right? Price, promotion. Okay, I see a lot of heads nodding. Now it's more about the 4 Es, I would submit. It's about engagement. It's about creating an experience. It's about creating an exchange. It's about creating an environment. So when we decided to innovate through this brilliant young man and his beautiful partner, Hannah Chung, who they're just phenomenal. I mean, we have brilliant people at Aflac, but they're actuaries. They're great with numbers. They get this. They could have not brought this to us, and that's where we'll talk about collaboration later and why it's important. But we knew that we had an opportunity to pivot the voice of the duck that people already recognized and create those 4 Es for these amazing, beautiful, phenomenal children in a real and authentic way that our employees, that our shareholders, that our leadership, that our sales agents, that our partners could, and particularly our investors, and we can talk about that a little bit later too, would really get behind. And if you don't think data drives strategy, and you don't think that doing good means good business, I'll share with you a statistic that just came into us last week. We have not advertised this. We have done it all through grassroots and PR. And we launched last January. We started delivering ducks in September. To date, we've donated 3,000 ducks free of charge to families and hospitals. We're in over 40 states. Again, 0 fees. We took the one thing that you can't buy to CES last January and launched it to win the Tech for a Better World Award, Best of Shows. Showstoppers is voted on by the media. And if you got your Time magazine last winter, you will note that our special little guy was rated one of the top 50 inventions of the year.
All right. Woo!
Huge corporate commitment, but that stat that I referred to about doing good means good business. 15% of people in the United States have heard of My Special Aflac Duck. And of that 15%, 100% of that 15% are more likely to buy our products because they've heard of this little guy. Those are great results to bring to your board and your C-suite. And the investment community loves it as well.
It's amazing because when I've done research, and I've done a lot over the years, the numbers on awareness, 5%, 6% of initiatives that are 10 or 15 years. So with that, I want to segue back to Aaron because we need to find why did he captivate the world's attention. So let's let him rip.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, and just to speak to the authenticity of what I'm about to show you and build on what Catherine said, you know, when you work with a large brand, there is always somewhat of a concern, right, that brand interests might overpower the interest of the product. And everything that I'm about to show you and everything that the duck was designed around use the child as the true north. And that's what's been so wonderful about working with Aflac. And you'll hear from the voice of the duck, which is different than the voice of the Aflac duck, to the actual aesthetic. From a Peking duck, we actually took all sorts of different sketches of a cartoonized duck on one end of the spectrum to a duck with a really long neck. And children chose this duck, which is different than the typical Aflac duck, but that's what we went with because children are the true north. So, would everybody join me in just saying hello?
Hello.
He likes you.
So the duck is first and foremost designed as a companion. So he's got touch sensors in his cheeks, where he's really affectionate, under his armpits, where he's really ticklish, and even down his back. And everything that he does is based off of a problem that we learn. So first and foremost, we learned that children lose so much control throughout their chemotherapy journey, this 1,000 days of treatment, that they gravitate towards play where they're in control. So actually, Legos are the most requested toy at the Aflac Cancer Center for boys and girls. Because think about it, you get to build your world, you get to control your world. So children can control when their ducks get chemo. So this is the duck's chemo port. When you attach it, your duck is a little bit surprised. And then something that you can kind of hear is he has a heartbeat. It's actually vibrational. So the whole duck is vibrating right now. It starts out fast and it goes slow. And so this type of medical play can be really powerful and really therapeutic for children to be able to experience and have control over something that's about to happen to them. Another thing that we learned is that these children have a really hard time communicating their feelings. Imagine being a 3-year-old and every half hour a nurse or a doctor is coming into your room and saying, "How do you feel today?" It's really hard to put words to those emotions, and even more so to know the spectrum of emotions to describe how you're feeling. And so what we did is we actually developed this visual way for children to communicate how they feel. So you can see we have all of these different tokens, these emoji cards: nauseous, afraid, mad, but then also things like silly, because kids experience such a wide range of feelings. And when you tap these to the duck's chest, so mad, for example, children can express to their caregivers. If you ever wondered how an angry duck sounds, this is how it sounds. And when we actually hear back from families that have been using the duck, this is the feature that families talk about most often. They say, "This gives a voice to my child." And this has been so rewarding because when we selected these emojis, these aren't just a random set, we actually spent a tremendous amount of time mapping the emotional journey of children, identifying the 7 most common feelings, going into their rooms with a grid of these 7 feelings, and every emoji in the iOS and Android emoji set printed out on pieces of paper, and then having kids match the emoji to the feeling, right? And we learned really phenomenal things in this. We had this feeling calm, right? We learned 3-year-olds actually don't know what the word calm means. But when we described it, I'm with Hannah, and we're thinking, well, what is calm? It's like a bubble bath. It's like being wrapped in your favorite blanket. Every single child, they chose the same card. They chose the calm card. And so here, through this patient-centered, through this user-centered design process, using children as the center, we were able to give a voice and help kids articulate a feeling that they otherwise didn't have a word for. And that's the real power of the duck. It gives this comfort to kids, it gives them a voice, and there's all sorts of fun things that they can do with it. So that's just a little bit about how it works.
So Erin also listened to the parents too.
Yeah.
For those of you who are parents, they requested a mute button just in case.
That's right.
So that's built into the duck as well.
Which is what you've noticed. I muted him as I couldn't hold him without tickling his sides.
Okay. So what we wanted to do was bring children today and their parents, but it was a snow day and they weren't feeling so well. But we would like to bring them here via a video. So if we could show the video, please.
What if we could make a change in the lives of children with cancer right now?
I was told that, I'm sorry, your daughter has cancer, and I was just in total shock.
Everything's really new in the beginning. They have no idea what to expect.
Each year, more than 15,000 kids are diagnosed with cancer in the US, and the average length of treatment is 1,000 days. And so we thought about the need for emotional comfort for these children. And now we have the opportunity to bring the latest in social robotics into the field of medicine, bringing comfort and joy through this daunting process.
Oh, that's awesome. What we try to do here is to give children the tools to understand what's going on and to empower them.
For our family and for Wyatt, the best use would be to help him communicate and a friend to comfort him when he's having treatment.
Play is natural to a child. Play is really how they learn and how they process.
So we leveraged play and some of the latest technology to create healthcare tools for kids with illness. Everybody knows the Aflac duck. We wanted to bring the Aflac duck to life into a caring companion for children with cancer. It responds and moves in a lifelike and natural way. They can feed their ducks, bathe their ducks, and when you tap these different cards to the duck's chest, it behaves with that feeling to help children communicate their feelings. By the time the duck is shipping, we will have spent 18 months designing, testing, and iterating with hundreds of families, doctors, and experts.
Hi, Levi.
What do you think the duck is doing?
Singing.
Duck is singing.
Yes.
First and foremost, the duck is a constant companion for children throughout their treatment journey.
He's kind of cute.
He's kind of cute.
Candy's going to do some breathing, and we're going to kind of match her breathing.
Just a
Tiny bit faster.
Perhaps most important of all, the ducks can share in the patient's experience.
Actually, good job. Yeah, look at this. Pack is also getting one.
Can I try?
Yeah.
What?
I think it's so awesome. You just feel comfort, with something like that.
I really like the Aflac duck to be your friend, to help you get through all your tough times here.
I think the duck has the potential to have a huge impact on our patients, our families, and our healthcare program as a whole.
So technically, y'all want to make it happen to give everybody one or something?
That's the goal.
If she has something to sit with her, something that can take her through it. A friend that will always be there. And it would help a lot of kids.
Thank you. Aaron, talk a little bit about Eli, because you saw in there he screamed, but then he instantly changed.
Yeah, so what Eli was experiencing is something called port access. That little port is something that's surgically put under your skin, and it's how you get chemo. It happens to you every time you come into the hospital 5 days a week. It's really scary. And that moment for Eli is what we hope to give to every child living with cancer, is just that little bit of relief, that comfort that you get from having something just like you that's going through this, making it feel a little bit less alone. And so when we observed that with Eli in the early stages of development, that was just this real moment of excitement of the potential to give that feeling to every child in the US.
And I think the deep insights that Aaron and Sproutel bring to this, remember you said that you went in with a whole set of assumptions?
Oh, yeah.
And then what happened to all those assumptions?
Well, they were all wrong. You know, we went in, we initially shared the idea because we wanted, it's hard to say, hey, we're gonna do this thing and we don't know what it is. So we said, hey, we want to create a duck. We think that the ducks can be walkie-talkies, so when you meet kids, you know, you could pair them and then communicate with your friends while you're out of the hospital. You know, it turns out every single idea that we had, I think with the exception of one, was absolutely wrong and it was invalidated.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's about being humble in the development process. And Catherine, I'd love you to talk about the receptivity from Dan Amos, your CEO, your agents, and others, because this was very different. You had to take a big leap of faith because you weren't going to see the product for almost over a year.
Well, there was that, but everyone knew that we were on to something very, very unique and special that could really make a difference. The most interesting group to me were the media. Because we went to CES, and I think Aaron said it, you know, we were between a talking washing machine and drones and all kind of crazy, crazy things. And people thought he was a toy. And to get them to come over and realize and engage, I mean, at first they came over because they thought it was fun. But once we got their attention and showed them the benefits and features, these jaded reporters who had seen it all, you know, they've seen technology, they don't really, it's about getting the story. They actually wept. I mean, on the floor of CES, they couldn't believe it. Our agents have taken it and gone absolutely bananas. We partnered with an organization called Carp Randall, and we created what we call CSR in a box, because we have these tens of thousands of agents that are in local communities and are doing good, but doing good for the sake of doing good, and how do you tie it back to your business? And of course, for the model and the prototype, we used My Special Aflac Duck. We gave them press releases on it. As a matter of fact, I had to send somebody to Albany just 2 weeks ago because the agent there was so excited about My Special Aflac Duck. They scheduled their own duck delivery, worked with the hospital, became an extension of our PR department. That never happens, right? To be able to leverage all these additional resources is fantastic. But it became so big, they needed a little help. So we sent someone from corporate up there to make sure that the ducks got in the right hands and the media was handled in a way that would encourage other people to stop and order ducks, which is exactly what we want to happen.
And again, going back to the wisdom that, you know, if indeed you are either currently supporting a social issue or want to select one, you've got to bring in experts. And so you've brought in Children's Miracle Network, the Children's Oncology Group.
That's right.
And how have they helped you in terms of your knowledge as well as for distribution and word of mouth?
Well, both. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to publish Dr. Meriton's study in the next couple of weeks. She'll be publishing, which is great because now we're also field tested by an expert in the field. Children's Oncology Group has embraced us. They have helped us get into a ton of hospitals. But I think I'm not sure what I'm doing here to make it pop. I apologize for the microphone popping. But Children's Miracle Network hospitals have been our biggest champion. They really have been a great partner, a great support. We're going to Children's Hospital Week for the second time next year. And so very much looking forward to seeing our champions again and being a part of that wonderful community who has really helped us get the word out.
And also, again, I really want to emphasize that you lead with something as disruptive, as innovative as this. And it comes from, the Aflac Duck is one of the few mascots, really, besides Ronald McDonald, that truly has loaned his celebrity the 93% awareness. So that's extraordinary. But any other business results that you want to share with the audience?
Well, it's very interesting. I think the one I'm most excited about this week is because it's the newest piece of data as well, is the 15% of people in the United States have heard of My Special Aflac Duck, and 100% of those 15% are more likely to buy our product. That's a showstopper for us.
Yeah.
The other thing is when I go in to brief the board quarterly, I show them our Reputation Institute scores, our pulse score, if you will. And then I overlay social media sentiment, employee engagement, editorial media sentiment, sales, taking out the anomaly for open enrollment, which is a heavier sales period, as you can imagine, and the stock price. And while I can't isolate the metric enough to prove causation, yeah, you'd have to be an NFL referee in the NFC Championship game not to see, okay, we got to have some Saints fans in here, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
You will definitely see correlation. I mean, you would really have to be not paying attention. So it's again, a wonderful way to demonstrate how doing good is good business. And make no mistake, we're standing up a whole different ESG department. Why? Because our CFO asked for it. Why? Because investors want it.
Absolutely.
And not that we're going out to raise capital, but we always want the stock price to be healthy. But if you try and raise capital in this day and age, from a bank, a fund, regardless, you better have a robust ESG program. And what better way to tie it all together and to put a bow on it than this?
Super. And Aflac has been, this wasn't inexpensive. You've invested at least, $2-3 million in the development.
At least.
Yeah.
And we're spending $3 million a year to get ducks in the hands of children.
But it's a wonderful investment, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to, also the Duck has infinite expandability through its app. And so, Aaron, you might talk about the app a little bit.
Sure. So the Duck is for children ages 3 to 13, which is quite a broad age spectrum. And one of the ways that we've made the Duck really engaging for children across that age is an app. So the Duck has a whole virtual world, and this is where kids can bathe their ducks, they can feed their ducks. There's all sorts of additional detail for the medical play where you can actually attach the IV bag and be really engaged and involved in the process of giving medication to your duck. And then building on this notion of control, the Duck has in the app, all of these virtual planets that you can travel to. There is a roller coaster planet, there's a garden planet, there's an ocean planet. And children build their happy places. They decide what we call them soundscapes are, what they sound like. So you can literally build the sound world. And then, when you tap this little rocket ship to your duck, you blast off to your happy place. And your duck plays that calming soundscape, which can be used as a part of a distraction therapy or during some of those procedures, like what we saw going on with Eli. So what we're thrilled about, and just from a technology standpoint, is here we have both our little friend here, which has the expandability over time to learn all sorts of new things, but then the ease of being able to send out software updates and transform this world again and again and again for children.
Great. So what we'd love to do now is take some questions from the room.
Obviously, you focus on the younger age, but I've been surrounded by cancer and children also, and around age 6, children start to lie to their parents, especially to not make them feel bad, how they feel, all of that. So, is there a way that they can talk to the duck? And also my second question is, cancer is such a really, really weird thing, and kids cannot relate to each other. Have you guys thought about creating a social media outlet for kids all over different hospitals to talk to each other and use that platform? Because sure, they can live on their own world, but how will they communicate about their pain? And like, if for some reason there's a chip that parents can hear them talking to the doc, how they feel, so the doctors knows, because I certainly would lie.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so that insight that you brought up is actually really, really powerful, and we heard that. These children are so strong, and while they're young, they're wise beyond their years. And when you talk to kids about what they're afraid of making their parents sad. They're afraid of making their siblings worried. And that's the type of stuff that chills you. And so one of the things that's you can't necessarily talk to the doc. It doesn't take any record of what you're saying to it, and that's partially because we wanted this trusted relationship. But what we found through some of the incredible child life specialists, who are these folks in the hospital who really administer play therapy, is they've developed these ways of using the doc as kind of a surrogate for the child's feelings. So they don't ask the child how they're feeling. They ask, how does your duck feel today about getting chemo? And kids will often answer for their duck in a way that they wouldn't answer for themselves. So my duck is mad today. Oh, why is your duck mad? My duck, we were in traffic and I just want to play and I'm here getting chemo, right? And so children will express and emote for their duck something that they might never share for themselves. And then for that other question about the social network, it's a really fascinating and interesting idea. For us, what we've decided to do is anchor in with this personal connection and the cornerstone of the duck, because it is so tricky. And parents often really do close down. The family unit becomes very insular with childhood cancer. And so the best we could say is we're continuously learning about how we can address potentially those things and make the duck even more powerful.
And there are some regulatory restraints around HIPAA and things like that.
Yeah.
We just learned in our family that one of the 3-year-olds has autism.
Okay.
And I've been reading a lot about it since then, and it so closely relates to identifying different emotions, throwing a fit, not knowing how to react.
Right.
And since then, I've also read about the depth of depression among children and stress. And so I wondered if you think the duck might be even adapted in a bit for some of those.
Talk about all of them. Okay.
Yeah, so just to speak briefly on that, it's really fascinating, and thank you for sharing that personal story. It's something that we hear a lot. And as a company, as Sproutel, this is what we do, and this is what we're excited about. We're actually really interested right now in looking at tools for autism with emotional communication. We are in development for things for children with PTSD, anxiety, OCD, so a lot of behavioral disorders, and even looking into other types of more disease-specific things like asthma, where there's particular protocols.
Yeah.
There's a lot that can be learned from the duck and the way that it's adopted that is exciting to see in this case study for children with cancer, where it is so specialized and so unique, how we can apply that.
So let me make an ask here, and really, this is so powerful and so engaging, the ease that Catherine talked about, but so important for children, that if you know anybody, a pharmaceutical, a food company, a foundation or such, we are looking for partners that can help us with food allergies, autism, childhood asthma, social isolation for seniors. There's so many ways that when you do it with this amount of authenticity, that you lead with the issue. So if anybody has, this is about networking, eyeball to eyeball, please come see us during the break, because Sproutel wants to do more for sure. And Catherine, where is the duck going to be going internationally? Can we mention that? No?
Sure, of course. We operate in 2 countries, the US and Japan, the 2 largest insurance markets in the world. That is by design, and it has to do with regulatory frameworks. And we were going to launch in Japan in 2021, but I think we're now aiming to pull that back either late this year or early next year because the demand has been so intense. We just didn't think we could meet the demand. But again, through partnership and accelerating the baseline and getting things done a little faster, we'll be able to do that.
Great to hear. Thank you.
I actually have a branding question for Catherine. How does this campaign, how does this purpose campaign connect to the mission of the company? Because I understand the campaign is amazing, but I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding how is it that you are connecting it to what Aflac brand means. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's a great question, and it's a much longer version of the answer, but I'll condense it down. Our company was founded on a cancer insurance policy. 3 brothers watched their father pass away of cancer, and if that wasn't difficult enough, what they saw was the financial toll it took on their mother. So they grew up, created an insurance company that sold cancer policies that paid cash direct to the policyholder, as opposed to paying the doctor or the hospital or that sort of thing. Created a whole new class of insurance called supplemental. And from there, that's where the tie, and that's why it's so authentic. And I wanted to share with the lady from Quantum, I believe it was, the passion on your face. Perhaps you've found your cause to work with Aaron to create something that will help these children with autism. If Aflac did it, it wouldn't be authentic. We don't sell insurance for autism. That's how the whole thing ties together.
And also the brand.
Thank you for your question.
The brand was also going through some evolution, some new attributes.
Exactly. We had, and this, Francisco, might not be something you want to tell your students. We had gone through, we had about 5 or 6 different CMOs in the course of a 10-year period. So the voice of the duck changed, and I was asked to come in and do a lot of due diligence around. There was nothing bad about those people. There was nothing wrong with those people. It was all about where they envisioned the duck, and it was all different. So we spent about a year dropping back to punt and getting a lot of research and letting the research drive the strategy going forward. I am a corporate person who ended up doing that project for the U.S. business. We, as of this month, are spinning marketing back into the U.S. business because obviously all of our Japan marketing is done in Japan. I don't speak Japanese, and that would be a disaster for me to try and work that cultural fit. I'm spending back into corporate to expand not just our CSR efforts and our corporate communications efforts, but also our ESG efforts. We've got a great narrative there, but it's very siloed. So we're pulling it up, pulling it all together. Right. And the remarkable thing about that, and it tells you the business case for this, is that came from the CFO.
Yeah.
He wants it. He wants the investment, and he wants to talk about it. So I think that's brilliant.
And I think it goes back to the collaboration internally, because you went to all your senior executives to sell the idea and then to ask them how they would integrate.
But one of the things I'm thinking about, and I'm going to pretend like I'm not in a room full of complete strangers I've never met before, but Aaron, you specifically in your design process, my brother had cancer. And so one of the conversations I recall very vividly was us standing in Memorial Sloan Kettering and him saying how struck he was by the reality that a lot of kids can't express themselves. A lot of kids didn't even have the language. They were too young. And so from a design perspective, this is incredible what you've been able to create. And I think I'm really interested from a leadership perspective what Sproutel is doing, and particularly how you've kind of found your team, how you've grown your team, and what has centered you guys in that design process to bring you together the way you have for the impact that you intend to have.
Thank you so much for the question, especially because I never get the chance to talk about our team who I love so much. So we got started, I met my co-founder, Hannah Chung, when we were both in college at Northwestern University, and we were both drawn to this notion of solving problems using design, specifically within healthcare from our personal experiences. So I shared mine. Hannah, she grew up with a family affected by type 2 diabetes. So her grandfather passed away from the illness, and when her father was diagnosed, her whole family had to change their day-to-day lives and adapt. And seeing how the diagnosis of one could kind of cause ramifications through the family is what rooted her passion in this field as well. And it was sort of a snowball effect for us. So right now we're a team of 8 people, and we have picked up people around the table who have these similar passions, both within healthcare and within kind of bringing these different industries together. So I'll just share the backgrounds of 2 of our individuals. We're based in Providence, Rhode Island, and we were lucky enough to meet our CTO because he was working through a National Institutes of Health funded grant with Hasbro to make toy controllers for kids with cerebral palsy so that they could play with the same toys as their peers. What are the odds?
Yeah.
And later, we've pulled in more folks from Hasbro, a toy industry veteran who's been in the industry for 30 or so years, who was just so passionate about the notion of using toys, because fundamentally, when you see the duck, those media folks at CES, you can't blame them to a certain extent. But the ability to take something and take this whole different industry and apply all of the learnings that have been picked up into something that can create impact is what has brought that passion to the table and a whole sort of other cohort of people. And so all of our passion comes from a different place, but we're all unified by going through this design process together and unified by the end user and our connection to wanting to listen to them, whether it be the child, whether it be their parents or the doctors, to integrate that feedback into whatever we create and be able to work with partners like Aflac who let us do it.
Yeah. And so I'm getting this sign, sorry, from Matthew. But I'd also like another ask from all of you, which is that this duck gets into the hands of children when a hospital inquires to have it sent to the hospital. It is not a direct-to-consumer because a child life specialist or a social worker has to help integrate it into the treatment plan. So Catherine, if you can share with our audience where our colleagues here, I know you've got lots of connections, where they can go to try and make this connection.
And we're not in Sloan Kettering, so just a heads up on that. We'd love to be.
Yes.
And we're happy. If you go to our website, aflacchildhoodcancer.org, you will find out how you can go and you can get your hospital to go online, because it does have to be a hospital employee. We do verify and validate that because we don't want this to become a toy. And a lot of people like Aaron and like Carol have done tremendous work to put together protocols, if you will, that go with the duck, that keep the child engaged and make sure they get the maximum benefit from it and it doesn't sit on a shelf as a toy might. So please visit Aflac Childhood Cancer Campaign. Tell your hospitals. And again, we do not distribute these as one-offs. The hospital has to sign up for the protocol so that the child gets the maximum benefit.
So thank you. So focus, insights, and collaboration. Companies, brands, and organizations have to be purposeful, but they need to do it with great authenticity. And so we want to thank Matt and his team for this whole day where you're going to be weaving in more about purpose. I started this work over 30 years ago. The time is now, and you can see when you bring amazing, disparate ideas together, great people who are business-oriented as well as society-oriented, the sky's the limit, and the heart for the children is as wide as the universe. Thank you very much.